Okay, welcome to the meeting, councillors. We do not have a chairman or a vice chairman today. So can I have a nomination, please, for someone to take the chair?
Can I nominate Richard Bassett as chairman?
Is that agreed by everyone? Seconded? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Bassett, please take the chair.
Thank you for that. I haven't sat in this chair for a little while. But there we go. Yes, it's unfortunate the chairman has injured himself and therefore cannot be here tonight. Okay, welcome everyone to the Stronger Council Select Committee. Let's start with the webcasting and introduction. This meeting is to be webcast. Members are reminded of the need to activate their microphones before speaking. And the chairman would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or use by such third parties. If you are seated in the lower public seating area, it's likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. Thank you. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman, we have apologies from Councillors Bolton, Matthew, Brady, John Whitehouse, and possibly Councillor Barnett, but I'm not sure. He might join us on Zoom. He is there, sorry. Yeah.
That's it. Thank you. Have we got any substitutions?
Yes, Chairman, we have Councillor Heather for Councillor Brady, Councillor Kesker for Councillor Bolton, and Councillor Janet Whitehouse for John Whitehouse.
Thank you. Can I remind the other members of the committee who are, shall we say, coming in on Zoom that you are more than willing to take part in all the discussions, but unfortunately you cannot vote should a decision be required. Thank you. Okay, move on to item 4, notes of previous meeting, pages 3 to 8. Can we agree those? Agreed. Okay, thank you for that. Declaration of interest. We have none. We have terms of reference and work programme. We just go through this every one. It's pages 9 to 12. I don't think anything changes there. Are we all happy with it? Thank you. Right, item 7, Stronger Council update, pages 13 to 18. Who's going to do this one? Mr. Small.
Thank you, Chair. This is simply a set of answers to points which were raised at the last Stronger Council meeting. So these have been provided in the form of an update note, really, and put on the agenda. So these are the responses to those questions that were asked. Happy to take any questions if members have any on those answers.
I haven't. Has anyone else? I went through them all. That's right. I'm going up. Councillor Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. I was very pleased to see this item on the agenda, and I thought it was a very quick response to Councillor Whitbread's request at the last meeting that this item did come to scrutiny. I am concerned that the trainings are not taking the needs of councillors who work full-time into consideration. The new members training on the 11th of May, I think it is, or 13th of May, is a full-day training on a Friday. And for members who are working full-time, you know, it's pretty impossible to come. And also the evening training sessions are getting earlier and earlier. If you look at the times of the ones on this list here, most of them are starting at 6. And although flexible working is quite common now, quite a lot of people still work a traditional working day, and to get home and to come to a meeting, it must be difficult. We used to be an evening council, very definitely, and our meetings used to start at 7:30. Now they've crept forward to 7, and training sessions have got even earlier. I do wonder if that's part of the reason why so few people are attending them. I think it would be useful to have some consultation with members as to what start time they would find possible, so that we get, plenty of people coming to the trainings. I note that there's going to be another list coming in July. I don't know, Mr. Small, whether it's going to be a bigger list, but most of the topics here are very much sort of inward focused. There's nothing there of the skills that councillors need to do our job, nothing about keeping safe or dealing with difficult people. I know those trainings do exist for officers. I think we need that. And I think a bit of consultation. It used to always be consultation on the training courses, and councillors are invited to put in what they thought they needed. Maybe that's going to happen in July when we have it coming to scrutiny. One of the other things that's missing here is getting to know what the services of the council do. We used to have presentations. Well, we used to go around and meet the officers and the different services, and the team leaders would talk about what their sections did. We have a presentation on housing, which I'm pleased to see, and they have been doing some seminars to the public, which members are invited to go to. Members-only seminars are, slightly different. We probably ask different questions, but I would like to see similar presentations on things like, environmental health, all those other sections. Otherwise, how do new members know what the council does that they're responsible for, in a way? So, yes, perhaps some of those things will be answered in July when the next opportunity to discuss this comes. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Whitehouse. Yes, some very good points there. Would you like to come take a stab at any of them?
I will, Chair, if I may, please. So I think dates and times is a bit of a balance, I think, unfortunately, really, in trying to, obviously there's quite a lot of training that the members have to go through, some of them are the mandatory courses, of course, and trying to squeeze those all in over evenings, I suppose, it would be a challenge. So concentrating at least one day's worth of training courses gives us an opportunity, I suppose, to get the bulk of the training done, and then we can populate that with further courses during the evenings. I take on board the point about timing of those evening meetings, and I'll certainly take that back to the Democratic Services team to see if anything or what can be done about that, and whether they can be pushed back a bit to make them more accessible to members, I suppose. Councillor Whitehouse mentions about some of the keeping members safe and other sort of general training courses. I think there's an intention to try and use the e-learning system that council's implementing, or is in the process of implementing, to try and do some of that general training. So I think it's definitely referenced in the following reports about using that to do some of that kind of training. So I think that's something we'll look to utilise to try and do some of the more formulaic training courses that members can do in their own time, perhaps. I'll certainly take back the point about the general, we call it training, but that general information for members about what the council services are, how we provide them and who provides them, to see if we can find a way of helping members to understand the breadth of council services and who they're provided by. So I'll take that point back.
Chairman, could I just come back?
Yes.
Firstly, I'd like to just thank Mr. Small for that reply, and for the reminder about the new training, access to training. I did have a question on the paper that went before the list. I didn't know anything about this member officer buddying proposal. I just wondered what that was. And I was surprised that the training for planning chairman and vice chairmen isn't mandatory, because that's a really important role. And, most of the others are mandatory, and I was just surprised that that's just desirable. If you could tell me the difference, the buddying officer thing in particular, Mr. Small.
Okay.
I think that was a point actually that was raised at the last Stronger Council meeting as an initiative perhaps to help new members to become familiar with how the council operates by giving them an officer buddy to help answer all any difficult questions or any questions that they might have about the operation of the council, which seems like a sensible idea to me. So it's something that we're certainly looking into providing for new members post the elections next week.
Thank you. And I would also remind that all of the lists of training courses we have down here in Appendix 1 are available to any member that wants to go on them, who wants to just brush up their knowledge. I know some of us that are old and long in the tooth, things might have changed. Councillor Kane.
Yes, I remember when we came here so many years ago that we did have a whole day with a lunch, and we had, you know, a very heavy schedule, and we just managed to get one day off, but we did have that. I wanted to make sure that that goes to every single councillor, because what happened is with COVID we had new councillors that came, and some other councillors who've been here for so many years, but they do need a refreshing, to be honest with you. So I think that is really more mandatory than this year than desirable, to be honest.
Thank you.
Excuse me, one more thing, and there is of course training how the council works as well.
Yeah, I saw it down there.
Yes.
Thank you. Depends how depth it goes and what level. Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. First of all, I welcome, that you've listened to us and that there is going to be some face-to-face interaction, not just virtual, particularly for that intensive day. And I just reiterate what Councillor Whitehouse's concerns, that particularly, certainly, I think for a lot of us, you were just inundated with so much casework when you first get elected that to have something in the first 2 to 3 months about dealing with casework and what you can and what you can't do. Well, sort of, I don't know what can and can't do, but some people have very high expectations of what councillors are going to do for them. And dealing with that sort of thing, I think is important. And I welcome the idea of the buddying system. And sometimes we've had things which Councillor Whitbread quite rightly pointed out at the last session haven't always been well attended, but we have had help on public speaking and that sort of thing that I found quite useful. Thanks.
And also, can I suggest that some of these face-to-faces are available over Zoom at the same time for people that can't come for the whole day but can drop in for sections?
I think we hope to record them so they're available to all members who can't make the day itself.
Thank you. Anyone else on that? I think we take that as noted at this stage, and obviously comments you take back. Agenda item 8, People Strategy Overview. Is that Joanne over there?
No, it's not.
You're going to do it, Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, both my colleagues who would have presented this are unable to be here this evening, so I've agreed to take this item, so apologies for that. But it is, in essence, really just an update. It's been a standing item on the agenda for Stronger Council all the way through this council year. And this is just the final in that sequence of reports, really. Most of it, I think, is probably been praised or presented to this committee in the past, so I don't think any of it is particularly new. It just provides an update on where we are with implementing the people strategy. I suppose one important point to note is that the current people strategy is just coming to an end, and so we're in the process of developing a new one, which no doubt will come forward in due course to Stronger Council. And we'll set out the objectives and deliverables over the 2023 to 2025 period. Other than that, I think I will take the report largely as read, as is a statement mostly of where we are, and there's nothing particularly that I wanted to draw out from within there. So happy to take any questions, and if I can't answer those, I'll take those back and provide answers in the minutes or written. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I had a quick look at this, and there's a lot changing, shall we say, and I think it might be worthwhile putting a little module together for members to learn how to go through and how to use these new systems, especially with iTrent and everything else. I've always found every time I go and log on at that, I have a nightmare and eventually fight my way in there to do anything. But I would love to see a little IT update for members as to show us how to do it, and we can ask a few questions on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Small. Just a couple of things, really. I know that you say perhaps you could expand a bit on the legal team consultation and the housing asset and property team review, perhaps telling us a bit more about it. We do seem to often be very short of legal advice lately, and that we've had to draw in, and it's not personal to Natalie because she's spread very thinly and has to deal with a lot of issues, you know, sharing her with Broxbourne. But it's my experience that it is, particularly when she's on leave, it's quite difficult to get hold of someone for some advice on monitoring type issues. And also I just don't, we used to seem to have more qualified solicitors working in-house for us, not have to pay for the extra. Is the idea that we use more external people?
Okay, Mr. Small.
So it's under the heading of common operating model, and this was an operating model devised for the council some 4 years ago, I think it was really. And all the council teams went through a restructuring process on the back of that. But there are some stragglers, I suppose, in terms of teams that are still yet to go through that process, legal team being one of those, and housing and property team being the other. So the legal team process is now, the consultation phase is concluded, and so that just leaves the implementation of the conclusions of that piece. I think we were mindful when that was being devised of members' concerns about having access to legal advice, and I'm pretty sure that the structure is being devised to try and make sure there is more capacity in-house to deal with members' queries. Nature of legal is, of course, that there are always technical areas or specialist areas, and we can't retain or afford to engage or employ, those technical specialists all the time. So there are certain areas we still have to go to trusted suppliers to get that specialist advice from. But I believe that the restructure should leave the legal team in a better position and should respond to the concerns that I know members have expressed in the past.
And I believe we're a member of the Essex Framework Agreement for Legal Services.
I believe so.
And I think we went through a period where we worked out the cost of trying to have in-house solicitors where their skills might not necessarily match against being able to call them in via the framework agreement. It worked out cheaper in theory. But it is legal is getting very complicated areas now, and there's so many specialist areas. But we'll wait and see, I think the word is. Have we got any other questions, or can we note this? Oh, sorry. Councillor Songa.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to say anything, but I thought I'd take the opportunity really to thank the team for working very hard throughout the previous year. In particular, to the mental health first aider training cohort. When we started out last year, we had a target of 60. That has been exceeded by 90. So thank you to the officers that participated. I think it's a great achievement. And just one other thing to say, success story of our apprentices. We've had one apprentice, it's in the report as well, who's done the level 4, and now he's successfully working and is appointed as the operations manager at Qualis. So well done to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Kesker.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to comment that for some of the more long-standing members on the council, this is a foreign language. I've just been looking at onboarding, perk boxes, what are the other one? Work buzzes, and all the rest of it, which frankly went somewhere over there, rather than being something I could relate to immediately. I will just go back to legal and say certainly for licensing we seem to have an adequate supply of solicitors to advise us whenever we have a meeting, and there certainly hasn't been any problems. But of course, if you go back a few years, if you wanted any of this information or you wanted to talk to a team, you simply walked into the office and spoke to whoever was in charge. And the problem at the moment, of course, is that's not possible. And you're having to leave messages where you may well get hold of one person, but you can't talk to more than one person very often in the team because they're not there. And that's without Rees-Mogg coming round and leaving his messages.
Your point is taken. Thank you. It might be worthwhile, with all these buzzwords and terminology, having an IT background myself, I was always very conscious I didn't use buzzwords, or if I did, I gave an explanation of what we were talking about. And it might be worthwhile just for councillors a one page saying that's what this is.
Chairman, if I could just come in, I mean, the word perk box speaks for itself. It's perks the employees could actually get to celebrate their successes and achievements. And of course, buzz, I mean, you have to have a great buzz around team morale and all that working within the local authority. So telling us what is working, what's not working.
Yeah, I think we all can make assumptions what it means, but quite often you can get it wrong. Yeah. Just to confirm it.
I will come back on that one. The perks 40 years ago was something employees had when they snaffled it out the back door of the building without their employer knowing. And I'm sure that's not what you mean now.
Yes. Sorry.
Most of these are internal initiatives, of course, and we're always trying to rebadge a new initiative and make it sound interesting and get employees' interest, I suppose. So we're constantly looking for a new stream of words that we can use to express what it is, but also create excitement and interest in it as well, really. So not necessarily intended for a wider outside audience, but I take the point, and perhaps we should make sure that we explain to members clearly what they are as well. So we'll aim to do that.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've done the test. We note it? Yep. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 9, the corporate performance reporting. And who's going to do this one? Charlotte, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So presenting the Q4 corporate performance reporting, which contains key updates against a number of specific projects. In addition to that, there is also the KPI data, which provides the actuals and the targets for Q4. You may note on the report that there were some of the KPI actuals which at the time that the report was produced were unavailable. That was due to the time frame in which the report was submitted and the KPI data not being available. I do have some further updates which I got through this week, so I am able to vocalise those in this meeting, and I'll provide those in a written update through to Democratic Services after. And if there are any questions that I'm unable to answer, I will take the actions away and come back with responses after the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, moving through these, I'll start page at a time. I've got some questions, I know.
Okay.
You all know the statuses. Page 26. Anyone got any questions on that one? Development strategy and housing and asset management system. No. Page 27. Rent sense and sheltered housing review, telecare offering, fully accessible flats and sheltered housing. I think most of that's pretty thin. One of the things I notice here is there's a request for it to be removed. Who says it can?
Which specific one are you referring to?
CPP 014. There's about 3
014
there.
rent sense.
They're all says request. Who
Yes.
does the request go to?
That's us, the Project Management Office. So the project has in effect completed and closed. One of the things that we request is for a project closure report to be completed, which has to go through internal governance. It goes through our steering groups for review and sign off. I am able to provide copies of project closure reports, but I don't want to remove it off this report without member agreement.
I did ask for some of those reports at the last meeting and I never saw them.
Those specific ones weren't at that time. The report had not yet been completed, but they have now. So any specific ones we can now send through.
That was on the previous. I've got some I would like on this one as well.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so moving on, page 28. Travel local and CPP 024. I would like to see the report for that one. Especially in the towns and distant towns and villages. And Councillor Kane would also like to see that one.
Chairman, I put my hand up.
Ah, sorry. It's
I
all
would
right,
also
trying
like to see
to
that.
always.
I would also like to see that report as well, because as you say, we get a lot of issues about rural transport. I am quite surprised that, you know, I know supposed to look at the amber blues and all that sort of thing, but it does seem surprising that so many reports are being closed when we have absolutely no idea of what the report says. I mean, if we ask for it at this stage, it looks to me as if this is closing anyhow. So any comments we have to make, I mean, you know, what will happen afterwards? Perhaps Mr. Spore can explain a bit more about the process of this. But I think we should have the opportunity to comment these reports before they are closed. I would be interested to know from Charlotte what member input there has been into this, because we know so much about, you know, the different villages and towns because we represent them. Well, not Epping, but you do.
If once the project closure reports have been provided to you as per requested, should you have any feedback at all regarding the reports, then I'd be happy to take that back through our internal governance, which is a steering group consisting of the key stakeholders across Epping. I'm more than happy then to provide feedback back to yourselves following that meeting.
And can I suggest that if there is something really sticking there, it be sent to the chairman of this group to ask for it to be brought back? I think that might be an idea. Councillor Kane. Do you want to press your mic? That's it. That's it.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a thought and a suggestion. Would it be possible perhaps to publish these reports and just provide a link in the weekly bulletin as they're published, and then if people do have an interest, they could just click through from the weekly bulletin, browse the thing and make comment as required.
Mr. Small.
There's a second part to this item that we'll come on to after we've done the progress reports on this and the KPIs, and then we'll talk about future reporting. And at that point, it might be useful to talk about the purpose of presenting this information to this report, the function of stronger council in terms of scrutinising performance, and what the future might look like. So we can do some of that at that point in time, if that helps.
It would, because at the moment it seems like the stable gate is already shut before we even get a chance to look at it.
Chairman, I didn't get an answer to my question about what input members had into this report.
The project team, isn't it?
Into the report itself, none at this point in time, in as much as it's an operational issue that we're reporting the progress on to this committee. But it's not other than the portfolio holder who may have had involvement in it. It's not something that we'd take through the democratic process normally. There's a whole raft of projects in here at the moment which are below the strategic level and very much in the operational. And part of the report that we'll come on to in the second part of this agenda is trying to rationalise that. So we're only bringing issues to members which are strategic in terms of taking forward the council's priorities as part of the corporate plan, and not trying to bombard them with lots of sort of operational issues, which is where we currently are at the moment. So as I say, that's probably the conversation we wanted to have at the end of the agenda.
Thank you for that. Right, just page 29. Anyone got anything on that? Page 30. Page 31, CPP 100. Can I see that report, please? Which is attracting, onboarding and retaining talent.
Noted.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Any comments on page 31? Page 32. Sorry. Councillor Kane.
I'm ever so sorry. Can we go back to page 30? I beg
Page
your
30,
pardon.
of course we can.
Yeah, it's the last item. It's been cancelled. The corporate approach to resident engagement. Will that come back? That's my question. Why has it been cancelled?
Mr. Small, can you comment on that?
At risk of saying something incorrect, but I believe there is a revised project ongoing at the moment that meets a statutory requirement that we now have to engage with certain groups. So I don't think this means that we're not going to do this at all. I just think it's going to be done in a different way. So.
Thank you.
And can I just add to that, I'm happy to refer back to the cancellation report to double check what is the next steps outlined for that specific project and provide that information back.
Yes, please, Sharon. Thank you. Okay, page 32. We're into the economic development area. Have nothing there. Page 33. I've got 092. I'd like to see the report Climate Action Plan. I dare say the Green Party members would also like to see that. And 093, green infrastructure again. Can I see the report? And Councillor Heather Kane would also like to see it. Pardon? Both of the same, yeah?
Noted.
Okay, page 34, interim air pollution strategy. I noticed that it says there was at the time lots of arguing over introducing a chargeable clean air zone, which seems to have gone out the window, hopefully. Project closed. Can I see a copy of that report, please? And again, Councillor Kane would like to see it. Councillor Bedford, would you have any comment on that one?
Someone's got the microphone on. Thank you. No, just looking at that, I would suggest that actually project closure on that is probably appropriate at this point, because the air quality monitoring for the interim programme will be starting again in 2024, 2025. So that will be a new report, and then it can be compared to what's already been measured. That's it, really.
Okay. As you can imagine, looking at this report, it doesn't say any of that, so we wouldn't know. Thank you. We've got local plan adoption. Poor hold. Nigel Bedford there is this year, next year, sometime never.
I'm just going to put my tin hat on. No, it's at the moment, I can't comment on what the inspector's said, but we've had to give the inspector a little bit of leeway for personal problems. She is on maternity leave, but we are following it up with letters. I can only say to members at the moment, we are pushing every button we can.
It's been never-ending delays back from the inspectors here, and it's not causing us any joy at all.
One of the problems was, as our plan kicked off, Maidenhead and Berkshire, or one of the other councils, their plan almost started exactly the same time. They got slightly in front of us at a particular point, so the inspector pushed that plan and went through with that. That then caused us delay on our plan because she didn't pick up the work that needed to do on our plan. Then, unfortunately, she's went on to maternity leave. So it's never-ending problems for us, I'm afraid. But we are coming. I can see some light at the end of the tunnel, and the light is approaching fast. Let's put it that way.
Let's hope it's not a train coming in the opposite direction.
It could knock me straight off the rails.
Thank you. We haven't got any rough dates yet at all, or any clue.
I wouldn't commit to a rough date. All I know is that I've been told central government aren't releasing actual local plans during PERDA period, so I expect that the earliest we're going to hear any more would be after elections.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, page 35, digital planning improvement. I personally have looked at this. Have we got any dates here? Because it's sort of, we've all had problems with planning recently, and I've had quite a few complaints. So are we getting on to try and improve it?
Can I just come in on that point, please,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman? Just to advise that there is a new digital solution being implemented, and I believe it's mid to end of May. So hopefully things will improve with the planning system. The benefits will be greatly improved over what we have at the moment, in that there'll be online reporting daily to managers when projects start to drop behind, amber alerts to officers, telling them that they have so many days left to get the applications approved or rejected. And so there's a vast improvement to what we have at the moment. And you have to remember as well that the current system that we had in place had, I think, around about 2 million pieces of information, which had to be migrated across from the previous a company that was responsible for it. Officers have had to be trained. So I'm not saying that there won't be a few hiccups during any new programme if IT brings in. There generally is, but we are doing our best to improve the situation, and we've invested heavily in new IT to help relieve some of the pressures on the planning team. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on that? No? Okay. Page 36, there's an awful lot of cancelled and closed there. Does anyone want a copy of any of them? Saw the councillor portal there, and I saw Sam. Councillor Kane.
If I could just make a note on that particular one, 120, the customer portal. Yes, that project has closed. It's completed what it set out to do. As the portfolio holder, I'm not happy with the results, so I'm going to be reopening it.
Yeah. Because I must admit, most councillors do struggle with some of the portal and inconsistent results on what we're trying to do. Councillor Helen Kane.
Yes, on page 36, CPP 124. Why is that cancelled? I think it is very important. The digital customer journey, customer services, increase the digitization of the customer's journey.
Mr. Small.
I think sorry, without having access to the background to it, I know that it's a major area of activity for the council actually. So it's not as if the work has stopped in this particular area. I just assume that this particular project, in the way that it was originally framed, has been superseded by the digital strategy piece, which is actually coming under the umbrella of this committee anyway, and as is being reported back through various reports in terms of progress. But digitisation of the customer journey is quite an important part of the council's ambition in terms of efficiency, but more importantly, meeting customer expectations as well about how they can self-serve. So it's not ended.
Thank you. Anyone else on that? No. Page 37. Page 38. 39 is a continuation of 38, which takes us over to KPIs on page 40. Would you like to start us off on that, or should we just work on them?
I'm happy to lead on those. The KPI data that came through for Q4. So if I start with the overall customer services and the overall customer satisfaction, they reported actuals of 62% against a target of 80%. It is improving, but there is still some work to be done. That's going to be addressed through a number of initiatives that the customer service teams are working on, and part of that will form into the digital strategy as well. I don't know if we've got any questions at all about that specific.
My maths are reasonably okay, but when it went down from 65 to 62, it's not really improving, it's going down.
That is correct. I will take that back.
So it seems to be consistently at that level. Can we possibly ask for a report as to what the remedial plan is to get it back up to 60 to 80 from around about 60? Because it's not changed at all. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Kane.
I can give you some insight onto that. As has been reported throughout the year, we've had continuing staffing issues within customer support. We've been below optimum staffing levels for all sorts of reasons, not least of which is COVID. We've lost staff. We've had introducing new staff, and then you've got the take-up time, the learning curve to be adopted, and there has been a non-stop battle for the last 12, 18 months. And we're still not there. I'm sure if we can get to a settled, optimally staffed board, we will hit those 80% targets without question. But at the moment, the battle with staffing continues, and that's pretty much the top and the bottom of the issue here.
Yeah, I think we'd still like to see a report just to tell us exactly where. And Mr. Small.
If I may add to Councillor Kane, is quite correct. The staffing issues have driven most of this performance issue during the course of the year, associated with turnover and sickness, and as he's already said. Not helped, of course, by some of the extra responsibility that's been put on the team as well by some of the government initiatives that we've had to handle as well, whether it be COVID grants or now energy payments as well, and obviously the customer service team work closely with the revenues and benefits teams as well. So it's all places an additional workload on that team, unfortunately. As already been mentioned, the planning system and the new housing system will be are intended to improve these performance statistics by taking some of the need for people to contact us away, so they have the answer straight away rather than having to pick up the phone to us. And you know, when too many people are trying to use a service not populated by enough staff, then it obviously results in congestion and frustration. We recognise that. Well, I think in terms of when we come to put together the work programme for this committee for the next year, then customer services is something that we could look at generally, I would have thought so.
Thank you. Councillor Samcombe, you wanted to come back.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, just as a measure of my confidence that we can get this target achieved with the correct staffing levels, if I can refer members to look at the next KPI, which shows that the first point resolution continues to increase as we move and we educate our staff to get the person answering the phone into a position where they can actually answer questions directly without referring back through the chain.
Thank you. Has anyone else got any comments on page 40? No. Page 41. Sorry, actually it's part of page 40. Q4 of customer services complaints resolved with SLA. It's got waste received the highest across all teams, and I saw there was a note out because of staffing, they're struggling with some of the collections. Is this related in any way as to why there are complaints? Do anyone know?
I know Councillor Avy's on the...
Yeah, I just noticed that as well.
I'm happy to kick off if he'd like, and he may want to come in afterwards. Sorry, so I probably didn't catch any of that because I didn't have my microphone on, but I'll kick off, and Councillor Avy may want to join in. I think it's there is an issue, largely around capacity, I think, within the waste, our waste operatives crews, really, but which is a reflection of probably a wider industry challenge as much as anything. And I guess this is, you know, the number of complaints that we're seeing increasing is probably a building up of that issue over a period of time. So today's message to members is probably an elevation of that, really. But I guess it's I guess the two are related.
Yeah, before I ask Councillor Avey to come in, I would like to say what concerned me was 60% of waste complaints related to contractor conduct or behaviour, which doesn't go down too well. Councillor Avey.
Yeah, thank you for that, Andrew. I think one thing members don't appreciate, but I do appreciate as the portfolio holder, is the enormous management that goes on behind the scenes to keep the waste contract going on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And frankly, you know, there are always management issues going on with the contract. It's complicated. It's got lots of working parts. And occasionally, as we have at the moment, we do have quite a large problem, which we're hoping to manage in a pragmatic way to get things back to normal next week. I don't think it will be the last time we have problems, because some of the issues underlying all this are true of all waste management across most of the country, frankly, and relate to staffing and everything else which is set out in the message to members. Really, I think one member made a particular complaint about not being notified. Well, frankly, I think we notified as soon as we knew there was going to be a more complex problem than just a couple of miscollections, quite frankly. So I think we've done all we possibly can to let members know, and through them, hopefully residents. But as I say, I think the aim is to be back to normal by early next week.
Yeah, I should like to echo some of the things you said there. Throughout all of COVID, our residents, we've done incredibly well in maintaining collection services, and I think most people would say it's been wonderful, no problems at all, but it's always the odd ones that cause the problem. Members, sorry, lots of hands suddenly shut up. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Councillor Avey. Just a couple of questions, really. Is it the driver shortages with Biffa? That's the first one.
I think that's true to say that is a factor. And there are other shortages, I understand, in other waste contracts in other areas. Therefore, there is a demand for staff. You know, we suffer from staff moving off. We have vacancies, and I think Biffa, like others, are struggling with that at the moment.
I must, you know, congratulate Mr. Marsh, because he does always try to do his absolute best within his power to sort out problems. But this is one of the issues. I had someone on the phone tonight to me about missed collections last week for about 3 roads in Forest Ward, which I'm sure is typical of other areas where you've had problems and there's not been time to collect all the recycling. I think what people were frustrated about is they didn't get anywhere ringing. Well, we all know why, because, you know, it's difficult to get through. But also, when they complained online, if they could have said, like you said in your email to us today, leave it out for 3 days and then not bother, I think that sort of would have helped people a bit. But as it is, the WhatsApp groups in the wealthier streets of Loudon just get going and going. I'm sure it's the same in Epping too. But I think that's something that we have to address. I mean, the press release went out as well, but not all residents are into the EFDC press release.
No, it's a real problem how to reach everybody all the time with something like this, and I agree with you. You know, however efficient we are at PR and getting messages out, there will be a percentage of our residents who don't look at things and then complain about the fact that our waste hasn't been collected. We just do our best to make sure we're as efficient as we can at letting people know. And equally, I go back to what you originally said, yes, David Marsh should receive the equivalent of an EFDC knighthood for the work I know he does behind the scenes on a day-to-day basis to keep this all running efficiently, and his team as well. You know, we live and learn. But I mean, it is, for the council, it is one of the most complicated parts of our service to keep this running with all this headwind we've had over the last couple of years and continue to have. So it won't be the first time we have problems, the last time, quite frankly. We have to be honest with that. But we do what we can to pick up where we've had problems and rectify them and get the service back to normal as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Bedford, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just quickly, I don't know if Councillor Avey would agree with me, but obviously walking around the streets in the last week or two, I'd noticed that with the the hot weather and the long Easter break being the first bank holiday that we've had with really good weather, has actually exasperated the problem, because when I was walking around, I did notice that people's blue bins were absolutely overflowing with glass bottles, drinks, etc. And I think the added impact of everybody putting out the bin bags must have caused an enormous strain on the system. You've got the operatives having to do even more weightlifting exercises to get these heavy boxes and things collected as they're going round. And the added problem to that is that, you know, as soon as the bin lorry's full up, it has to return somewhere to dump it all. So the knock-on effect of that is obviously probably getting towards the end of the day, the last 2 or 3 roads don't get done, then the same problem happens the day after, and then the day after again. So cumulatively, by the end of the week, they're probably quite a bit behind, and they just cannot catch up. Doesn't matter how many operatives you put on, it's like a supply and demand situation where we just can't get rid of the rubbish quick enough. It might be worth actually reminding residents where the glass bottle banks are and recycling dumps, you know, where we can dump cardboard. And if you do come across that again, we've got a big bank holiday this weekend. Again, the same problem may knock on next week. So it might be advisable, if residents have got the opportunity of taking some glass to the glass bottle banks and cardboard, we get rid of it ourselves instead of relying on Biffa. We're out in the car moving around, why not just take it and drop it off at the same time? It might help Biffa in the long run.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going back to my childhood when I used to collect all the bottles and take them back to the off licence, get threepence each on them, and that was my pocket money. There again, everyone's as old as me, but Councillor Keska's smiling.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I remember back that far as well. I was first going to congratulate our bin teams, if you like, because during the whole of COVID, when we were hearing horror stories from some councils, our teams worked all the way through and did a very, very good job. Very rarely were we let down at all, and I think they did a magnificent job, and I think that should be recorded. The complaints that I get, funnily enough, are not about the staff or anything. When we changed to Biffa, we were supposed to have green lorries. The lorries are bigger, and the problem is that they can't get down some of the roads, particularly where they're cul-de-sacs. They have to drive across the pavement and sometimes across grass verges as well. And of course, they wreck the curbstones. Now, that's a fairly regular complaint, that it's not that they're not doing their job, it's not that they're not emptying the bins, they are, but they're leaving behind a trail of destruction for the curbstones because the weight of the trucks is tearing them out. Now, there's nothing the individual teams can do about that. I don't know if there is an answer to that, but that is the complaint that I see quite regularly, and it's not a complaint specifically to our staff or to the system as a whole. It's just the size of the trucks trying to get down some of these roads.
Councillor Avey, did you want to come back?
Equally, I get lots of complaints from Biffa about inappropriate parking by residents means they cannot get trucks through. And we have a blacklist of streets where that's true, where people have parked on corners and things, and it means it's almost impossible to manoeuvre the rubbish trucks through. The larger trucks are reflective of the enormous amounts of waste and recycling which the crews are having to pick up. We do have smaller vehicles which can go out to difficult spots or missed spots to pick up stuff, but I'm afraid it's a reflection of what they're having to deal with. So, but I do take Councillor Keska's point, and I think Biffa it's drawn to their attention there's damage to anything that's being caused by the collection lorries, then they do try their best to make sure crews are aware and do their best to avoid that.
Yeah, can I say I was out yesterday and I witnessed one of our biffa lorries just couldn't get down a road. Two people had parked opposite themselves right at the entrance of the road, and a car couldn't get between the two, let alone the lorry. And they were quite frustrated, shall we say, and they were just going to take a picture so they could send it back and say, look, we can't get down there. Thank you. Councillor Kane, you had your hand up there.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just to echo exactly what you said, because I have on my phone a lot of pictures of people's attitude on parking, and especially in narrow roads. There you can see all four wheels on the pavement, and it just causes a lot of problem. It is, I don't know, I've been sending them to the police. The police say, they can do nothing. And it is really a very difficult situation to be.
Yeah, and it won't even be for our trucks. It also could be for emergency vehicles.
Absolutely. That's what they are frightened of.
Okay, moving on. Page 41. I've got one thing there. Community health and wellbeing, number of homelessness approaches. We've got the number for Q4, but no narrative.
There wasn't narrative at the time, but I can confirm that I've lost the report now. It was 887 over the total of the year, that averaged on around 70, just under 74 per month. So a very slight increase, not 74, 75 per month, slight increase from the previous quarter. Normally around the December period and the festive season, they do see a decline. So it has creeped up just slightly, but I think we're still pretty close to where we were around that time, as this is for Q4, so it was the January to March period.
Thank you. Also on the bottom, number of households in temporary accommodation. The numbers are rising, and are we foreseeing the cost of living having a large impact there, where people and gas, electric, where they just can't afford to live?
I personally would like to assume the reason for that number increasing, but I am happy to take that back to the lady responsible for that service area to get her input into what that might be.
Thank you. Mr. Small.
I think it's a generally accepted risk at this point in time. I think it's a good point and well made, really, and I think there are a number of factors which will put pressure on temporary accommodation usage and potentially homelessness applications as well. Energy just being, cost of energy and inflation just being one of those. But I think we're approaching or entering into a difficult time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, moving on. Page 42. I'm very pleased there that number of families in bed and breakfast accommodation for 6 weeks is still 0. That really pleases me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Sorry? There you are.
Please.
Your hand comes up, but it's so small you don't really notice it.
Right. I have a question about the bottom one. It says this is no longer reported. I just wonder what isn't no longer reported. Is it gym visits? Because other leisure attendances seem to be reported. I'd just like clarification of what that's referring to, please.
I assume you're meaning page 43.
I thought that's what we're on, sorry.
No, we were just about to go to 43. And to
yes,
be honest, the point you've raised is I've got the question there saying why. Down there, that one. KPI no longer reported by places for leisure.
Yeah, it's on 42 as well.
Is it?
Yeah, the very bottom line on the left-hand side.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you. Mr. Small.
So I didn't hear the answer, Chairman. What was the answer?
I'm hoping Charlotte may be able to.
Charlotte.
So my understanding is that there was an agreement made at the Leisure Management Board that KPI did no longer need to be reported against.
Okay, so it's the Management Board.
Correct. Yeah, the Management Partnership Board.
Okay. Let's move on. Page 44. 45. page 46, housing management rent arrears, Q3 and Q4 are both awaiting data. I thought we should have had Q3, if not Q4.
I can provide a further update on that. There were some that I was still waiting for data for, which I do now have. So I can confirm that in terms of this one, the actuals were, sorry, the report's just gone from my view. Bear with me 1 second. This is for rent arrears. Are we?
Yeah.
So for Q3, the actuals was 1.41%, so still below the target of 1.55, and for Q4 the actuals were 1.21%, so again below the 1.55 target set.
Thank you. And again, that might be impacted by the cost of living and fuel and everything else in the coming quarters. Need to keep a close eye on that one. Planning and development on page 46. I see we're pushing up on the majors, but we're still a long way from achieving numbers, and I have had quite a few complaints about delays on and then when they try and contact the office, no one's there that can answer them. They don't get told when they can expect it, and it just goes on and on and on, which they are starting to object. And I've seen a couple where they've gone to the inspector for failure to determine. Councillor Bedford.
Okay, yeah, officers are clearing the backlog, and obviously a couple of the larger applications were held in abeyance with officer decisions because we was expecting the local plan to have gone through, which is obviously there are a couple of non-determination applications that have gone to the inspectors, but also taking into account where we are with the local plan and how close it is to sign off. It's not with us now, it's the inspector's plan. We can only, as I say, keep our fingers crossed. The things that are moving forward, we are clearing the backlog, we are getting through stuff. Someone phoned me this week to say that they had a 2019 application, which was an improvement on 2 weeks before when I had a 2018 application. So, yes, most people are getting them done, but can I just say that any members of the public that are watching, if you've employed an agent, please use your agent when you're trying to deal with our planning team, and not try to do it by phoning up yourselves, because you will not get a response. Effectively, once you appoint an agent to work on your behalf, that agent is the point of contact for our officers. I need them to get on and get the work done and not spend every hour of the day talking to people as to why their applications are not approved, because the simple answer then will be, well, I'm talking to you on the phone, which is why the next person's application is not getting approved. So we are doing our best to get things done. We do have a couple of shortages staff-wise, but we're doing our best at the moment, and we are clearing the backlog slowly.
Yeah, perhaps you could enlighten me here. I know there was an issue where we had to employ a lot of agency staff. Are we now recruited permanent people?
My understanding is that we have recruited people. We're making best use of new staff that we've got. Obviously, that take a time to settle in. The hybrid working system, I've flagged up and I've spoken to officers about that, how we can make that work best for us and for committees, because don't forget we would like officers to try and attend, at least one officer to attend when we have plans east, plans south, plans west. And it has proved difficult in the past. It was unfortunate. We've had annual leave that needed to be taken up because of the home working situation. So we've had people off on holidays, which creates a shortage, and the knock-on just gets bigger and bigger. We are getting there, and I'm expecting some major improvements within the services that we can provide from a planning team in the next year. It's not going to happen overnight, I have to admit that, but we are getting there.
Thank you.
I do have the Q4 actual data for the major applications, which on comparison to Q3, where we were at 36.4%, for Q4 it's actually at 70.8%. So that's quite a big difference. The the information that I was given regarding that KPI is that the backlog of planning permissions, because of the air quality impact, is steadily being released, with applicants supporting improved performance, and as a result of that, 17 out of 24 applications had been decided in time.
Thank you for that. Moving on to page 47, I think we sort of, the answers to the previous one, we sort of covered all the issues with that one as well. Anyone else? No? Page 48. Page 49, I've got one thing there, sickness absence. I can't remember, our absence numbers are still quite high, but I believe they also exclude COVID-related sickness.
That is correct. So absence data does not include COVID. However, I can say for the Q4, the number of sickness days has actually dramatically gone down to an average of 2.08. So that's below the target set, which is 2.15 days.
Yeah.
Which, considering a return to work, has started to be a little bit more common now, and physical presence in the office, it's a really positive step forward that the numbers are reducing.
Can I say, as someone that worked from home for about 15 years, if you're working from home and you're ill, you still carry on working. So it does get the numbers. It's when people are coming in the office, they say, I don't feel up to coming in, but working from home, they are still productive. Thank you. Right, that moves us on. Has anyone else got any, which page 49? Page 51, is that yourself, Mr. Swall?
If I may, Chair. So this is, I think, one of the things we're conscious that we present an awful lot of projects to this committee, really, and they're not all of equal significance, I suppose, in terms of their relevance to the corporate priorities. I think we've struggled a bit in the past in terms of working out what the right balance is in terms of what needs to come to committee and what doesn't, really. And I think we probably tipped too far one way and brought everything, much of it very much in the operational space, and probably not something that members need to be aware of, not impacting upon service delivery, not impacting upon the delivery of the major corporate priorities for the organisation. So we have a list of about, 140 projects or so currently that are being monitored by the Project Management Office. What we feel that we want to do is create a sort of a league table, a divisional approach to it, really. So while there are things that we as officers need to keep track of and make sure are being delivered, we don't necessarily think that actually bringing those into a member forum is necessary. And if we do, it takes obviously officer time in terms of turning it into a report format, or the PMO in turning it into a report format. So what we'd like to do is try and to have a cull of some of the ones which are much more operational, and just focus on those which are much more critical to the organisation's direction and performance, really. And that's what's presented to you in terms of those which are critical to the corporate plan. And which we think would be a better use of the committee's monitoring function. I mean, one of the things what you'll have noticed is we went through the performance report. We have lots of detailed discussions about all sorts of things. We focused with a discussion on waste and a conversation about customer services, both of which are actually within the remits of other stronger committees. So customer services, for example, is part of stronger community, and arguably that committee should be having sight of the performance for those services, and being challenged, officers being challenged on the performance in those areas and what the plans are for performance improvement in those areas. Obviously, so that creates a bit of a conflict in terms of what's the role of this committee in overviewing or reviewing performance. So Stronger Council has the role or the remit of monitoring performance. of the council and council's activities. But really, when an issue is identified, I suppose it then moves over into the remit of the other stronger committee, or the stronger committee that's responsible for that service, to actually address, tackle, understand, challenge, make sure officers are focused on improving performance in those areas. So the danger is that this committee is focusing on is looking at everything. And one of the things you'll find in doing that is that we don't always have the right officers in this format, in this forum, to answer questions, whether it's about planning or whether it's about customer services. You have a broad range of officers here who can answer some of the high-level questions, but not the detailed ones. So what we want to do is try and focus it back on probably the things that are central to the organisational corporate plan delivery, and focus those in terms of projects, monitoring in this space, and a broad range of KPIs as well. And one of the things we also know is that the KPIs need to be looked at and improved, we think, because there's the KPIs don't focus on everything, not everything that's important anyway. There's some obvious gaps in terms of the performance reporting that we do here. There's a new corporate plan currently in development that will lead to a new set of targets and performance measures that demonstrate that we're delivering on those corporate plan targets, and those should then form the basis of the future stronger council KPI reporting in future. So that's the purpose of this, really. It's a streamlining of the projects that we report. The 14, 15 pages of projects that we've been through are I would argue, too many, and we're seeking the views of this committee, really, therefore, in terms of that approach.
I have conflicting views on that. I believe that we would need to know exactly all list of all projects, so we know what the council is doing, rather than a filtered list, because the members would not get sight if we just get told that, but there might be other projects which are very pertinent to what we're doing. But it's the view, if we ask what is the state of this project, we can, if we know what the projects are, because we might feel it is important. We might have a different view to officers. I can understand it, but there again, we've gone through everything in high level detail just to raise our concerns in 35 minutes, which didn't exactly take very long. And we just look at the page, any questions we want to raise, anywhere where we want further information. So I think it's a balance between the two, but I'll ask members, what do you think? Councillor Whitehouse, see you've got your hand up this time.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I did before, but you didn't always see it. I didn't catch everything that Mr. Small said, because it's really quite quiet, the sound from the chamber on Zoom. But I think it was all about streamlining and fewer of these coming to this committee. Some years ago, it was agreed that KPIs would go to the relevant committee because members there knew more about it. For example, when we had a housing scrutiny committee, the KPIs regarding housing used to come to the housing committee because members there knew a lot more about housing than members on this committee or on the equivalent committee knew. And that worked very well for a few years, but somehow that's been forgotten and they've all come back to this committee. But I think that, if it was clearer what the other scrutiny committees stood for and members gained expertise, it makes sense for those committees to be looking at these KPIs because it's much more meaningful. And hopefully if we, get some training so that new members do understand what the services of the council do and gain, are more expert, we'll be able to get back to that. But I would suggest that it's looked at again and what happened at agreement, that relevant KPIs come to relevant scrutiny committee.
I think what we're looking for there is a list of what projects there are, and then on the right-hand side, it could be what committee we believe it should be managing and reviewing it. And Councillor Sam Kane, you'd like to come in there?
And really just to echo the thoughts that you're making now, It is for the scrutiny committees to determine what they scrutinise, and rather than being presented with these are the things you can scrutinise, and I would suggest that it's perhaps the item number 1 on the new committee's agenda for the new year, I would have thought.
Yeah. Something area that can be looked at. Mr. Small.
Fair comment, really, and I think we'll aim to do that. I guess I was conscious that with enough, if you present a long enough list to enough people, that somebody, almost everybody, will find an interest in one of the items. So, it's, how do we rationalise the list so that we are focused on those issues which are corporately, operationally significant, really, as opposed to an item that a particular member might have an interest in from their in their professional background or their community background, for example. Not all the time. I'm just mindful about everything that comes to committee has officer time in preparing it, of course, and I want to make sure that we're streamlined enough so that we're not taking up unnecessary officer time and we are focused on the things that could really add value to the organisation. But I do fully accept that it's that's a decision for the scrutiny committee rather than for officers.
Thank you. Councillor Sam Kane, you want to come back?
Just to come back and expand on the idea, really. When I say item number 1 on the agenda, perhaps it ought to be item number 1 on ONS's agenda as part of their process of identifying the chairman for each of the select committees and starting to think about what their work programme will be for that year. So I think maybe it is at the top level. I take on board the comments just now. You don't want to have the circumstance where a project to select printer A or printer B is being scrutinised at a full select committee, because it's a pointless waste of officer time. So there is going to be some selection process that will be required from officers to identify the key projects that need that they believe would be eligible for scrutiny, and then for ONS to, if you like, cherry pick the ones that they feel will get the best value from the select committees that year.
Thank you. I think we have a way forward, and perhaps it's something, have a chat with whoever the chairman of the ONS is next year. Thank you. I think we're all done. That takes us to item, put my glasses on, 10. Dates of future meetings. There won't be any because it's the end of the year. And can I thank you all for your attendance and your help and information. I do enjoy this committee, as you can tell. I've always got questions to ask. But thank you all. And meeting closed, I think it's at 8:18. Thank you.